Dr. Tony Nettleman is a land surveying engineer and attorney that has been practicing for over 20 years. He is the president and owner of Nettleman Land Consultants. Dr. Nettleman is a distinguished professorship at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, University of Florida, Florida Atlantic University, and Troy University. Is currently the director of Nettleman Institute of Surveying Engineering. Tony currently teaches college courses, survey prep, and continuing ed courses both online and for national audiences. Tony regularly serves as an expert witness in boundary, easement, title, and as we've talked about tonight, riparian disputes. I love it. And I greatly appreciate your time again, as always. And another good topic, I think, to kind of finish up a lot of our business topics. It ran a little long this year. We had quite a few of them, but something I think we all need anyway. So this is a good one, I think, to finish on. So I appreciate it, Dr. Nettleman.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, Trent. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy mentoring Mondays. You know, I am a horrible business owner. You know, I'm just not a very good business owner. I used to love the business side of surveying like a long time ago when I worked with my grandfather, and I've kind of gotten, you know, it's dulled my senses because every day in business is something new. You need to hire a new customer service person. You need to, you know, order some equipment. You need to buy a new truck. You need to buy, it's just, you know, every day is a new challenge. And sometimes there are so many challenges, it just kind of like, you know, just overwhelmed. And not only do I struggle with running a business, I often, you know, probably at least once a month, either testify for a land surveyor, like in defense of a surveyor in civil litigation, or I testify against the surveyor or the surveying company because they've really done something that breached the standard of care. And I was thinking, like, if I had to give like a 1-hour class to these surveyors, either the ones who did a good job or the ones who did a not so good job, what would I tell them to do differently? Now, I'm not sure they'd listen to me because a lot of these surveyors are, you know, set in their ways, and it's difficult to help them understand why they've, you know, opened themselves up to some kind of potential litigation. But I wanted to share with you some of the things I've seen over the past couple of years in real civil litigation, either for or against surveyors, and talk about these stories. I promise I won't name real names, but I'll tell you the full story, at least. So a poll here, I'm going to put my chat box on, and I'm not sure I want y'all to answer this question because, you know, a lot of people, even if they didn't do anything wrong, they're embarrassed about being sued. But who here has ever sued somebody else? Like, who's been a plaintiff in a civil lawsuit before? And I'll go first. I was a plaintiff because my lawn guy came and did my lawn. He was a new guy. He mowed the lawn, gave him $100. He did it really well for a month. And then he shattered my giant window, like this, like 12-foot, you know, wide, you know, sliding glass, 3 sets of sliding glass doors with rocks. And then he denied he did it. So I sued him in small claims court, and the poor guy ended up paying. He didn't have any money, so he, you know, did a monthly payment. But I had to sue him in small claims court, and it was a mess. So I've had to sue someone once. I've never been sued myself, luckily, and I hope I'm never sued. So anybody else here, have y'all ever sued anybody? No, Trent's shaking his head, no. Well, thank God. Yeah, exactly, thank God. Because I've seen surveyors who do great job, who have good practices, who have good employees, who have good contracts, they get sued and they have to pay out. Why? Because they were involved just tangentially in some kind of construction or something, and the plaintiff sues everybody. He sues the surveyor, the engineer, the contractor, everybody gets sued, and the surveyor is just brought into this as one of the parties. Now, on the other hand, I've seen surveyors who basically do surveys. I had one guy and girl, and they would do any survey in Texas in 24 hours. 24 hours, and it was $100. Whatever you wanted was $100. So they did a bunch of elevation certificates for people, and the elevations were like off by like 1, 2, 4 feet. Well, they were actually using Google Earth to do their elevation certificates, and like email, they never even went to the site. And they did this like 15 times, and they went to the board, and the Texas board like would fine them $100, fine them $500, like really basic. And I called a friend of mine. I said, well, why hasn't the Texas board taken away this person's license? And the gentleman said, well, we don't consider prior complaints when we fine people. We just consider the complaint at hand. So like I can get it reported 15 times. It doesn't happen to me. Well, you wonder why there's no Texas Board of Land Surveying anymore, right? Now it's the Texas Board of Engineers and Surveyors. So I've seen great surveyors who get sued and have to pay up. I've seen crazy surveyors who haven't paid a dime because they have, litigation attorneys. So there's a chance you're going to be sued, which terrifies me and terrifies you. But maybe you can do something differently to protect yourself. So being involved in a lawsuit is at best frustrating, because even if you win, you lose, because you've spent all this money, all this time, it's drained you, emotionally, financially, and at worst, it's a company killer. I have a potential client who I spoke with and reviewed some documents, and they said, if we lose this lawsuit, our company's done. We're just going to close it. And it's a big company, several hundred employees, engineering, surveying. So they're really worried about, I've done one bad thing possibly, and it's going to kill my, 30-year-old company, which is really scary. So why not, use an ounce of prevention instead of a pound of cure? And what I mean by that is, why don't you do some things differently today during the good times? So if you're ever confronted with a lawsuit, whether you're a manager or a C-suite or you're an owner, why not do some things differently and try to protect yourself, just to be a little cautious? And the good thing is that the same good practices that will protect you from liability will also help your business. Like, it's smart business, it's smart legal, it's smart surveying. Just do some things differently, because you'll benefit from it no matter if you're ever, possibly sued or not. Now, the bad news is that change is really hard for people. I understand this, as I've gotten older, I really have found myself embracing the status quo more than I would have 10 or 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, you said, oh, try it, doesn't work, who cares? If it doesn't work, big deal. Well, right now, I've got a lot of students enrolled in the prep courses, help thousands of students. If I make a bad decision in like the learning management system for 1,000 students who are online today, it could piss off 1,000 people. So you don't want to, do a lot of change, but you're going to have to, because Dale Carnegie said, keep your mind open to change all the time. Welcome it, court it. It is only by examining or re-examining your opinions and ideas that you can progress. And that's true. That's absolutely true. If you look at the human brain that doesn't learn anything, there are actual, full parts of your brain that go dormant. I hired a woman who was about 50, 55 as a customer service rep, never read a book, doesn't really like online courses, been doing the same kind of, low wage job for, decades. And she had a problem with her family. So I bought her this book and I said, read this book about family boundaries. It'll really help you. Well, she hasn't read a book in decades, and she couldn't get her mind around reading this book, and it killed me. So, but on the other hand, I like to get licensed in different states. So, every year I get licensed in 1 or 2 new states. And you say, well, what's the real value in getting licensed in 10 states? Who cares? Well, first of all, clients like it. As if, a client calling Ohio or Florida or Texas, you can say you're a licensed surveyor in their state, which is fine. But also, I take these exams and it helps me compare the statutes in Ohio versus Texas. And I find myself like, I really love the Ohio legal description statute. It's a very, like 15 different items have to be in this legal description. The surveyor's name, the date of the survey, all this stuff. And I was like, well, I wish Texas and Florida would adopt this statute. Then I read some other things that I think are stupid. And I say, and I tell the board, this is a really dumb, part of the statute. You should get rid of this. So it's good to keep your mind open, good to always be learning something. And now moving on to specifics. I made a list of like 20 things. If I would tell the surveyor what, good ideas, I had like a list of 20 things, but I only wanted to bring, 5 or 10 with me a day. So let's go through these. And just for fun, instead of me telling you, why don't someone jump on here, anybody who wants to talk, and just read one of these and then mute yourself and let the next person read it. Anybody?
Anyone? Go, George. Come on, George. You like to talk.
What?
I'll go. Commit to a promise.
Reputation I've got, huh?
Go for it.
Go ahead, Jerry. I'll do number 2.
Okay, this is Jerry. Commit to a promise, standard of care, company-wide, and let that guide all decisions.
Okay, number 2 is memorize all details of the client-surveyor relationship. That's a good
Almost one. Memorialize.
Memorialize. Well, memorize.
Good try, George.
I'll take number 3. Hire good team members and train them in the XYZ company way.
Number 4, use the proper equipment and keep it in good working order. I'll add an extra word in there. Good working order.
I agree.
Okay,
I'll take 5.
I'll try again. Specify not just what you did, but what you did not do on the face of the survey map. That's a good one.
Contractually limit your liability. That's probably a whole 2-hour conversation right there.
I'll do the last one.
Go for
In
it.
the end, have a giant umbrella and hope to never lose it.
I love it. Thanks, Rami.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to pull up my whole screen. So I'm going to go through this real quick, and then I'll show you something I use because I want to give you all real world examples here. So number 1, memorialize. Wait a minute. Commit to a promise. I'll go number 1 first with what I have here. My business coach told me something in IT called a service level agreement. So a service level agreement is like what the client expects from you and what you expect from them. And I found myself, getting mad at my clients because they weren't doing some of these things. And I said, I never told them. How can they be expected to do what I want them to do if I never told them? So this is like a promise. Okay, this is for the consulting. NLC to client expectations. We will return your calls within 1 business day, usually sooner. We will review, examine, and read all of your files, no matter what. We will use our library to help you. We will do whatever it takes to get ready. Like before a deposition, we'll spend 2 hours, 4 hours reading anything. We'll spend 2 days or 2 weeks preparing, but you will get our 100% attention. And finally, we're not going to rip you off. We're going to keep an accurate time log, and we're going to bill you every month. Because attorneys hate getting huge bills at the end of the case. So that's what I want from my client. Now, to me, client to NLC expectations, you have to give me all of your documents to review. Don't keep me in the cold. You got to keep me up to date on all pleadings, motions, mediation. You've got to give me adequate notice of hearings, depositions, or trials. And you got to pay your damn bill, because I hate clients who don't pay their bills. So I give people this whenever they sign up as an expert witness. Trent, mute Jerry for me, please. And I tell them, this is what I expect from you. and this is what you should expect from me. So there's no guessing, there's no expectations that are unsaid. And if you want to do this, you got to commit to a standard of care. Like, I'm going to make sure I survey only with accurate equipment, only with good people, only with trained technicians. You set a promise, whatever it is, you stick to it. And you tell the client what the promise is. And you also make this promise to your team members, to your officers, to your owners, all this stuff. And you do your best to meet it. Now, I'll be honest, I don't meet this promise 100% because I'm human. We're all human, but we do the best we can. Commit to a promise and let that guide all decisions. Well, if you have a standard of care and you tell this to a potential client and they don't want to pay you $500 an hour, if they don't want to let you review all the documents, if they only want to survey 2 corners of their 4 lots, that's a great example. Tell them no. If the client doesn't want to accept your promise, your standard of care, don't take them on as a client. Or if they are a client, fire them. I fired 2 expert witness clients last year. It was the best thing I ever did. They broke the promise. They were bad clients, and they had to get ejected. Now, question for the audience: who has ever fired a client? And if you want to unmute yourself, you could tell us about it.
I'll just start with mine. Mine's always payment issues, right? You can't write a client out for 180 days, 120 days, whatever the case may be. A habitual client that just drags you on. So that's always one, or ones that are difficult to work with, right? It's just, you think that you pick up the scope of work and there's always nitpicking of some sort. So there's sometimes that personalities don't work, right? Personalities don't always work with everybody.
Absolutely.
So,
and these clients, their standard of care is paying people within 6 months. Well,
yeah.
How do you deal with that? You have a system. Our system in the expert services is the bill is due immediately, 0 days. If you go past 30 days, it's 2% interest per month. If you go past 90 days, all work stops. If you go past 120 days, you're ejected. Just simple as that. And it's written down, it's a rule. So there's no specialty. There's no, like, I'm going to take the interest off because I like you. It's a rule and it's followed. And if they won't pay the interest, see ya. Or if they have too high an expectations. I had a woman, got hired by an attorney and a landowner in North Florida. And this woman blatantly told me she wanted me to make up an easement in the record because she wanted the easement over her neighbor's road. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you need to forge a document to put in your file to prove you this easement. I was like, you can't be a client, Or I had an attorney who wanted $1,000 off the bill. Well, that's just too expensive. I said, you just paid $650,000 to settle this case. You can pay $1,000 to finish the bill up. Well, but I'll have more work for you later. No, you won't. No, you won't. See you later. So commit to a promise and let that guide all decisions. If the clients don't like your promise or they won't keep it, show them the road. It feels great firing a crappy client. I mean, it feels fantastic. I still talk. It's been months. I'm still happy about it. Makes me smile. All right. Number 2, memorialize all details of the contract surveyor relationship. So the old way is a lot of surveyors use handshake deals, like, yeah, $100 on the phone, $500, whatever. And Jeff Lucas has been around for like decades. Like, I remember I was in high school and I used to go with Walt to seminars, and Jeff Lucas was talking about getting a contract. Well, I just saw him, was on here a few weeks ago, right, Trent? And he was on contracts. I mean, Jeff Lucas, he thinks he's like a preacher. It was like, I can just hear him screaming from the whole other end of the CEU complex, him talking about contracts. Well, he's not wrong, because if you don't have a written contract, then expectations are implied by the client, expectations are implied by you, and then it gets messy a lot of the time. So you really do need a contract. And you don't just need a contract, you need a scope of work. Like, what is going to happen in this job? What is complete? Because like Trent said, the scope creep, nothing's ever complete. They want more and more and more for the same amount of money. I was reading a deposition just last week preparing for a trial. The surveyor staked out a 20,000 square foot house over the setback line. It's like 5 feet over the, it was more than, it was like 15 feet over the setback line. This is a 20,000 square foot, $5 million to construct house. And the attorney said, did you get a contract for doing this form board survey? This is exactly what he said. He said, if I copied this from the deposition. If I complete a $500 survey and I spend $100 of my time on a contract, I can't make any money. That's a true statement. I completely believe him. But what the heck is this guy doing, doing a 20,000 square foot house form board survey for $500? And what are they doing? You know, that should be a red flag. Like, you're a contractor, you're a builder, you pay a surveyor $500 to do this multi-million-dollar home. Stupid. And I just wanted to take this guy, I wanted to reach through the deposition statement and just like shake him, you know, like, just like, it's like trying to argue with someone who has completely different political viewpoints than you do. Like, you just don't understand where they're even coming from. They're speaking French. And I just wanted to call this guy and just tell him, you know, for the love of the profession, just stop it. You know, he was trying to tell me that he wasn't supposed to plot the setback lines, only the platted subdivision setback, which was different than the county setback, and all kinds of stuff. And I just wanted to just strangle him. But then again, he kept me employed for 6 years, because this lawsuit went on for like 6 years before it settled. And what's funny is another surveyor did the exact same form board survey a little bit later on, was this first guy got fired. And the other surveyor, he did 2 surveys on the same day of the same form board, and his measurement from the house to the road was 2.7 feet different. Same day, same land surveyor, same equipment, everything. He did 2 maps that were 2.7 feet different of where the house was sitting on the lot. It's what, you know, takes a lot of patience. You know, I don't even want to say these people. Now, on the flip side, my business coach said to me the other day, he said, Tony, how can you create an exceptional experience? An experience that is so good that you can put any price on it. If you wanted to charge $100,000 for a form board survey, what would it look like? You know, just what would you do? So I was thinking about that, and I got a phone call from a guy, a gentleman, an attorney, who has an easement dispute with his neighbor. And I said, okay, well, what's the issue? He says, I own 2 large casinos, and on either in between my 2 casinos, there's a small strip mall, and the strip mall is suing me because we had a reciprocal easement agreement, and I need help. I said, okay, no problem. Send me the complaint, give me a couple $1,000 and I'll look it over for you. So I did. And in the complaint, this strip mall mentioned that this gentleman just paid $8.5 billion for this property, $8.5 billion. And I can't even fathom what $8.5 billion looks like. But this pipsqueak strip mall is bugging this guy who's paid $8.5 billion for his lot. What do you think he's willing to pay to fix his easement, to get rid of his neighbor? I don't know. What do y'all think? I mean, what?
$1,000.
What was that?
$1,000.
$500. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. And those are the clients you don't want to have. You know, the ones who will spend 5 million to construct a house, will only pay 500 for a survey. What do you think, Jerry? What do you think, what this one would pay?
Well, that's the calls that I used to get at school asking if I had a class that had a project they'd like to work on. So
Yeah, people who want free and yeah, exactly. Well, I thought, what is 1% of $8.5 billion? He'll resolve this for 1% of 8.5 billion. So help me do the math on that. So that's 8.5 billion. Then 10% is 850 million, right? So the 1% is 85 million bucks. So
well,
he paid,
multiply that by 5 because that's what a realtor is going to get for a commission on
oh
selling
yeah, he
property.
deserves 7%. Yeah, 5% is cheap for realtor fees these days. 7 or 8% is the normal. So yeah, I mean, and these are the kind of people you work for because they're willing to memorialize, get a contract, do a good job, fix the guy's problem, but it's worth it getting a contract because it's going to be a long-term job. So if you're getting jobs that are so cheap, it's not worth the contract, you probably shouldn't be doing those jobs in the first place. Another example, out in Texas, there's a pipeline being built several hundred miles long, and these surveyors were hired to survey, put a stake in the ground of the new pipeline. Well, no problem. There's a design plan, load it in AutoCAD, put it in your GPS, go stake this pipeline every 100 feet. Easy job. Well, this new pipeline intersects with several old pipelines, which are gas, natural gas, whatever. So the surveyors did show where the pipelines crossed over, which was smart. But the people who were building this new pipeline did not know how to read construction drawings. So they went out there and they started drilling, and they drilled into an old pipeline, killed 4 people. Yep. Well, who gets sued? The land surveyor, because they failed to note a danger. So what the plaintiffs wanted was a big statement on every crossing that said, danger, this is a pipe crossing, do not drill here. Well, come on, that's not going to happen. But I said, well, where's your and the attorney said, what should the surveyor have done? Should they have put that on there? I said, where's your contract? What was the surveyor hired to do? What were they supposed to stake out? What were they supposed to mark on the ground? Well, we don't have a contract. How much was this job for? Millions and millions of dollars just for the survey. And the surveyor never got a contract. And I said, why not? He said, well, we work too fast. We don't have time to write contracts. We're out there, running and gunning, digging and drilling, all this stuff. And then he told me, if we lose this lawsuit, it's going to bankrupt our company. Because it's I think it was like 14 million per person they were being sued. So what is that, like $60 million in potential damages, if not more? Because they killed 4 people. And I said, gosh, why didn't you have a contract? So even the bigger jobs, these people don't think they need a contract, don't know the scope of services. And then if there's no contract, the liability is proven by the standard of care. And the standard of care is a lot more difficult to prove than a contract's plain language. So in the end, just get a contract. All right. Number 3, this should be, hire good team members and train them in the XYZ company way. Now, how many of you guys here are business owners, managers, officers, like some kind of like management or ownership position? And just say hi or me or something in the chat, or you can talk. So who here out of you, 17, 20 people, how many of you guys are not just technicians, you're managers, leaders, owners? And don't be shy.
I would bet they're looking at some of the names on here. I bet you it's over 50%.
Okay. So when someone comes on, a survey technician or an office person, whoever, when they get onboarded day one, do they get trained in how to do it your way. So Caitlin, Jordan, do you guys have like a formal way to train every employee? First day and every day after. That's a great answer.
That's right. Good job, Nolan.
What about you,
I
Trent?
don't,
The system?
Go for it. Go for it, Caitlin. Yeah, I was gonna say, Caitlin.
we don't have, it's,
Yeah, I was
we
gonna
are
say
a
the
very
smaller.
small person operation, so there's only two of us,
Yeah,
and we both own it, so.
most everybody on here is smaller. So ours is definitely, kind of getting thrown with the chiefs, and then learning from chiefs, and we talk about company culture and stuff like that, but the actual like learning experience comes from being in the field with the guys. So
Okay. Now, Trent, do you have like a documented, do you have a handbook where it says like, how do you do a boundary survey? You start it,
I don't know.
I've been watching Landon's videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I love Landon's videos because he's using these videos to train his people. And
Yep.
whenever I hire someone new, they want to come to be like, should I do this? Should I do? I was like, I don't care. Just, this, you need to learn what would Tony do. And in
Yeah.
that situation, make the call. And if you make a bad call, you're not getting in trouble. Like, we'll talk about it if you cost me a lot of money. But if you make an independent decision, you're not going to get in trouble. But at the same time, delegation without training is a criminal offense. You have to teach them how you expect to do it, and then you set them off on their own. Now, I learned this thing in Strategic Coach called unique methods, and Jerry knows all about this. So trying to think of a good that people like to use here. So I probably have hundreds or thousands of these things. So I was going to show, I was trying to help Jerry the other day do something, and I said, I want you to, where's a good video here? Fix it. Oh yeah, here you go. I want you to email our video editor guy, and I want you to fix an online video. Well, how do you do that? Well, you locate a video needs to be fixed. You note the time in the video where the change is required. So change a word at time 5.82. Then if you need to, edit the PowerPoint and export it to a PNG. Record new audio or video is required. And I have this template in Gmail that says template fix. And you put like FS course, survey comps, grid to ground. And then you just wait for John to fix it and he'll send it to you. Well, and I figured out people have a hard time reading things. So I made a video, and I showed them exactly how I want it done. So anybody can watch this video, request a fix, send it to the AV guy, the video editor, and you can watch me do all this stuff. I'll show you how to make a new online course. I'll show you all kinds of stuff. And I'm not even a tenth of the way to getting to where I want to be in terms of documentation. But at a bigger picture, I structure my day where I come in for the first hour, clean up my files. We have a morning meeting at 9 a.m. every morning except Wednesday. After 9 a.m. or during the 9 a.m. meeting, you give me 3 items you're going to work on. What are your 3 items to do today? Marketing, sales, customer service, paralegal. Everybody has 3 items. And then you go through your day, you do your 3 items, you have your lunch, and then you clean up your desk. You go through your email, you go through your physical files, you go through your inbox, you clean up before you close out into the day. Well, I realized none of that's documented. I was teaching that by them watching me, and they all do it in the office, but the remote workers have no idea what I'm talking about.
Request fix for video
So,
in prep lesson.
Uh-oh,
In this
my video is playing.
we're going to be talking about how to
So I realized I have several hundred ways of doing things, systems, but I've got no system to teach people how I run my day. Well, I'm going to spend all of March making these videos, writing up the booklets. So you've got to have this XYZ company way. You got to have some company-wide policies. And not just policies like vacation or sick leave, but also tell people why you exist, strategic objective. Tell people why you started your company. Include a great company story about why I do things. Explain how the days, the weeks, the months, the quarters are set up, why we have meetings. So it's not just the survey specific stuff you got to document, it's all your company policies. And to do that takes years. I mean, it's a serious project, but it's worth it. You've also got to have team member specific policies and systems. Jerry's helped me update some courses, thankfully. And I realized, I'd say, Jerry, go answer a ticket, a student ticket. Well, how do I do that? Well, that's going to be CF 508, answer Zoho desk tickets. Click on the PDF, but I've got no video yet. What about if I told my paralegal, Nate, I said, Nate, there are 3 surveyors involved in a case. It's in Ohio, and I want to know if they have complaints against them in the past. For a paralegal, not a surveyor, it can be difficult to go to the board, know where to navigate, do all this stuff. So I said, let's sit down and do the first one together. You go to elicense.ohio.gov, you search first and last name, you pick surveyor, you hit search. Then you click on their name, view more, print, put it in their file, repeat the steps, and go on to get all the surveyors. So this is really time-consuming stuff to document how you do things in your company. But the good thing is if you document this stuff and it matches the standard of care in your state, then you can show, if you ever get sued, you can show the court, the judge, hey, look, we know what we owe to our clients. We know how to do a boundary survey. We know we have to do record research. We got to do the field work. We got to use proper equipment. And I train my people how to do that. Now, what happens if one of your people does not follow your method? Well, that means that you get indemnified a lot of the time from what they've done because they've acted outside of the bounds of their employment. You told them to check into a GPS monument twice a day and they don't do it. Well, guess what? They broke your company policy and you've got at least some kind of potential to, push the lawsuit onto them. Now, Kent, I'm sorry, this is copyrighted by Strategic Coach and they're very hostile toward people sharing their stuff, but you can see it on here, which is probably a copyright violation in itself. So you can make it yourself, just don't tell people where they got it from. Sean says, training and mentorship are very important. We follow state society survey rules and processes. That's great, Sean, but remember the state society standards are only voluntary standards. And just because it's from a state society does not mean a court will accept it. So state society standards are good and they're helpful, but they may not be as good as civil, civil records like orders in your state that are the primary law for setting standards.
Just on a thought of that, wouldn't that show kind of a standard of care for the area surveyors if they're following state societies? Just a thought, but
we had this discussion about the ethics standards for some of the societies, and the ethics standards are voluntary, not mandatory. So you can accept the ethical standards from the society, but it's not required. And if it's not required, it may show you're going kind of above and beyond, which is good, but it'll set a ceiling. It won't set a baseline, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, got it. Perfect.
So here's an example. When conducting a boundary survey, the survey technician will measure the linear features like fences every 5 feet. That's a company standard, just made it up. So I had a case in Florida recently where the surveyor surveyed the fence in the south line, surveyed the fence in the north line, and connected 2 dots, which is fine, no problem. Well, what happened in between the 2 dots? It looked like the picture over here. It was zigzagging like crazy, and the fence was actually encroaching on the neighbor by like 3 or 4 feet in some places. It was a big encroachment. So this client spent like, I don't know, $50,000 on like beautiful plants, like exotics, all kinds of great stuff. The neighbor went out there and destroyed all of it. So this is my property. I can do whatever I want to, and just bulldozed everything. So that the property owner just goes crazy and goes and looks at his survey. He's like, this is my survey. And the neighbor's like, well, look at your survey, a straight fence. Look at what it actually is here, on my property. Look at what my surveyor gave me. And my surveyor gave me the real fence line. And it was true. The survey the exotic plant owner had was bogus. And this surveyor tried to say, well, the Florida minimum standards don't require me to survey everything, just the boundary or something like that. And the attorney's like,
Nope.
it states here that the survey will show all encroachments or improvements when there's a question near the boundary or, something like that. And the guy's like, no, it doesn't. So just something ridiculous. So just because the board rules say something broad, maybe you need to narrow that down. Like every technician shall survey any linear feature at an angle point. That's easy. If it turns, survey it. And I see fences encroaching all the time. I survey them as closely as possible. I had a horse lady last year. She's one of the clients I had to fire. Well, she had several paddocks, several pastures, and like 3 or 4 different sets of fences were encroaching on her neighbor. Her neighbor was encroaching onto her, showed everything. Now, am I going to tell anyone that's an encroachment? No, because that's for the attorney to decide. But I am going to show the deed boundary line, and I'm going to show all linear features and let anyone decide what they want to decide. But it's a standard that I'm going to survey all linear features at an angle point. Seems common sense. Why not document it? And it takes a lot of time, but it really is worth it. How about this? Oh yeah. Oh boy. I call him John Wayne. This is the guy. Now it's a little tough to see because these are, I'm going to rotate this to how it really looks. So this is the same property on the same day. And let me blow this back up. So on one hand, he shows the edge of the house at 31 feet. On the same day, same survey, a different survey, he shows it 33.7. So what is it? And he doesn't even show the outline of the house here for some reason. So here you go, 30.5, 30.2, 31, 32.4. Doesn't label the 35 here, labels it here, 31 feet, 33.7. And so what is your standard of care when doing a form board survey? Well, you got to do the boundary, got to show the setbacks, all this stuff. Well, why not say all form board surveys will be completed at no less accuracy than 1/10 of a foot. 1/10 of a foot's pretty decent. I mean, it's fair. Does that meet or exceed or fall below? Well, if it's 2.7 feet different in the same day, falls below the standard. So don't just let the court set a standard. Don't just let the board set a standard. Set your own standards in your company. And that way, if your team members or you fall below it, you've got, you can say you're not doing a good job because you're not following our systems. Number 3, use proper surveying equipment and keep it in good working order. One of my favorite things to do these days is to go observe any other surveyor experts in a case I'm working in. because I love watching what they do. You know, set up a GPS under a giant tree, you know, measure with old equipment, whatever. And the first thing I asked them, I said, I don't want to interrupt you, but before you get started, can I take a picture of the make, model, and serial number of all your equipment? The GPS antenna, the total station, the lasers, whatever. And they have no idea why I want this information. But later on, I go and I, ask the attorney to request some interrogatories from the surveyor. And I asked them, what equipment did you use in the job? I used a Leica TS12. What year, what month and year did you buy this equipment? Give me a sales receipt. I bought it in July 2007. All right, show me all the calibration records for this instrument. You know, was its yearly service? So from 2007 to 2022, there should be one per year, you know, filed with the dealer. Show me your calibration records. Now, if they have nothing to produce, then the deposition gets fun. We say, okay, Mr. Keenan, what equipment did you use? Like a TS06 total station. When did you buy it? March 2005. Have you maintained that equipment to the standard required in your operating manual? Geez, I don't know. Have you ever read the Leica TS06 operating manual? I don't think so. Let's look at it together. Pull it out. Oh, can you read page 3, paragraph 6? This equipment should be serviced every 12 months from a certified dealer, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you can't prove that your equipment is operating within tolerance, your survey has just been completely discredited. So good question to ask. Now you're going to have a lot of records because, you know, if you have 5 field crews and they all have 3 different pieces of equipment, then it's going to be difficult. And it's going to, now, not only that, but you got to maintain your level bubble in your prism rod. You got to check your prism offsets. You got to do a lot of stuff. So this requires a lot of equipment in your office. You know, now Trent, do you guys have the deal where you screw in the rod to the, you know, this like hanging fruit, and then it, you know, plumbs itself and it tells you whether it's good? You all do that?
Yeah. The guys do. Yep.
That's great. That's great. And you've got to, because, you know, you got to make sure all your equipment's operating properly. Now, I'm lazy. So I work with a lot of different surveyors. I go to these local places and work with them. I said, just lease the damn stuff. Every 12 months, give it back to it. Who cares what it costs? You know, you want a $100,000 laser scanner, lease it for 12 months. Oh, well, it's expensive. Everything's expensive. Trucks are expensive. Gas is expensive. Being in a giant lawsuit is incredibly expensive. So just go ahead and pass the cost on to your client and get new stuff all the time. So I like new stuff anyways. So why not just replace it every 12 months? Go dump all your stuff at the dealer at, you know, 11 months and 29 days, get something new. Don't worry about the calibration. Don't worry about, let's get a brand new, check it when you get it, and then be good to go. Number 4, I love this. Specify not what you did, but what you did not do on the survey map. Now, the old way of doing this is like just saying you met the minimum standards. I met 5J17 and 472 of the Florida statutes, done. Now, the new way is, I do this on my expert reports all the time. No flood zones were mapped. Only improvements within 5 feet of the boundary line were mapped. A title commitment report is attached to the survey, but this is not an opinion of title. Tell people what you did not do, because a lot of the times, if I'm doing a riparian survey, why am I going to spend all my time mapping these easements? Who cares what the easements are on the land? They care about what's on the water. So if you don't want to do something, go ahead and just say you didn't do it. You know, give what you did, give what you didn't. Now, personally, I have only done one survey in the history of my license that did not have a report. And the reason why I didn't have a report was that I already did a big survey for him, did a report. This was just a very limited legal description for the court order. But I always write a survey report. And it's usually 5, 10. I did one last few months ago. It was 157 pages with the attachments. It was a lot of stuff, but it was a big issue about section corners, and Palm Beach County had actually created 2 different township section systems. There was a complete mess. Like one was the state, one was the county. They didn't match up. It was a complete, circus. But I always write a survey report because I want to explain to people not only what my conclusions were, but why I did something. Like, why did I accept a section corner? Why did I accept a 5/8 inch iron instead of a 1/2 inch rebar? Or why did I accept the pipe and not the rebar? Because I come to pincushion corners, I come to missing corners, overlapping stuff all the time. So I want to fully explain why I did something. So when a surveyor shows up behind me, they can kind of get in my brain to figure out why I did something so they can, build on it later on. So at the end of the report, I put in all my limitations. No flood zones were mapped. If I didn't do any easements, no easements, whatever. So give people the full story and then tell them what they can do later. I call it further research. They can go do their further research and do whatever they want to do with the report, but this is what I didn't do. But there's a limit to what you can limit, if I could say that properly. I read a survey recently. It said, no record research was conducted during the course of this survey. This is a boundary survey. And again, I wanted to reach through the computer screen and strangle this person because 66316, this is Texas, says, when delineating a boundary line as an integral portion of the surveyor shall follow the documented records affecting land title. If you did not look at any documenting records, I'm pretty certain you can't follow it, okay? Rely on appropriate deeds and other documents of the adjoining parcels. You didn't even get the current parcel. Forget about all the adjoiners. A land surveyor assuming the responsibility of performing a land survey also assumes the responsibility for such research as adequate thoroughness to support their determination of the location of the boundaries. If you did zero research, there's no way you have met the minimum requirements for a Texas survey. Impossible. So you basically, on the face of your survey, just admitted to a breach of standard of care. You did it yourself. And you don't even need an expert witness for this now, because this is not even an issue of fact. This is an issue of law. So did you meet the standard? You, as a surveyor, have just said, I did no record research. Judge, I'd like to bring in 663 statute as a reference to this case. Okay, accepted. Compare 663 to the statement. It doesn't take an expert to decide you didn't meet the standard. Like, it's done. Summary judgment. So you can limit what your expectations are or what what you did in a survey, but you can only limit it so much. And be careful if you limit it to something that was required by the state statute, you could really be doing yourself bad. All right, number 5, contractually limit your liability. The old way is the handshake deal, same thing as before. The new way is, in your contract, the liquidated, actual, or emotional damages available to the client in this survey matter is limited to the total amount of money paid to the surveyor. You pay $500 to the surveyor, the absolute worst you can get me on is $500. period. You could even say the professional land surveyor in responsible charge is in no way responsible for the work of the survey. The company, the survey firm is entirely responsible for this job or whatever. Now, will that hold up in court? Who knows? I mean, contracts get overturned in court all the time, but why not have a clause where it limits your liability? I don't do that because I would hate for my expert clients to think I was trying to limit liability because I was do something wrong. But if you're doing, run-of-the-mill surveys, you can do that. Now, what is the outcome of that? So, you guys remember Sanford and Son, where this guy?
Give me my money now. I said,
There's a heart attack.
things like this before. Oh, this is the worst one I ever had, son. Oh, it's the worst one. This is a big one.
If you get a lawsuit that names you for like 10 million or $100 million for liable, you're gonna have a heart attack like George. But instead, what about a little more peace of mind? And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. I've got a dispute where do you know what a caisson is? It's like a big hole in the ground where they build like a bridge and it goes up like 20 feet. So it's actually dug into the ground 15 feet for an interstate bridge, and it goes up 20 feet in this case. Well, there were three parties in this bridge dispute. One was the prime contractor. One was the company who is supposed to pour the concrete caisson. And the third one was the dredge person, one who dug the hole before the concrete get poured. Well, the person who dug the hole had a clause in the contract that said, we are only liable for the amount you've paid us. The person who poured the concrete, they had like a $12 million bond that was backing up their work. And the general contractor had the survey. Well, the surveyor put the center of the hole, the caisson, in the wrong place. It was like 6 inches off. So they put the hole in the wrong place. They dug it in the wrong place. They built the steel in the wrong place, put the concrete in the wrong place, and they spent $12 million fixing the error. 12 million bucks. So who is the state going to sue? The prime contractor who has a bond, the concrete pourer who has a bond, or the ones who really screwed up who dug the hole? Well, assuming they're going to sue the people who have the bonds. So in the end, the prime contractor sued the subcontractor with the bond, and the prime contractor didn't even bother suing the one who had no bond, because why bother suing someone for 12 billion bucks if they have no money? So in the end, why not limit your contractual liability if you can? Now, at the end, the reason why there's a guy with an umbrella here, I don't know why he's so small, is in the end, the best peace of mind is really having an umbrella of insurance, having E&O insurance, having like a 2 million, 10 million, wherever you need an umbrella, because even good surveyors get sued. Even good surveyors have to pay out. Friend of mine, Orlando, he was surveying a park, and there was a hole in the ground in the middle of this little new trail, and he was surveying around this, this little depression. Well, he put orange cones around the hole, and he put it around the survey equipment. Well, a bicyclist rolled past, hit a cone, and sued him for $50,000. He had to pay out. So he put the cone on the path to warn people of the threat of the hole. They hit the cone instead, and they sued him and won. You can't even, imagine this stuff. And the lawsuits I see are very fact specific, and they're very, kind of weird circumstances. but you have no way to predict those circumstances. Like, you're just a victim of the civil litigation process sometimes. And if you have an umbrella, then you've got some kind of safety where if you have a claim, it's not going to bankrupt you. So in the end, it's probably a good idea to have a big insurance policy so you can call Hartford or Travelers and tell them to deal with your lawsuit so you can get back to work and keep doing your thing. All right, we got plenty of time for questions. Any questions I can answer? Who has any questions, comments?
Yeah, anybody can definitely unmute yourself and ask away. That's good. I like it, Tony.
Thank you.
Anyone? Anyone? Must be dinner time.
Yeah,
Trent, I got one.
sure.
Go for it. Go for it, Kent.
How's it going, Tony? Good to see you. So I know a lot of states have limitations on liability for surveyors, whether it be 7 years, 10 years, 15 years from the date that, the survey was, sealed. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. And I know that every state is a little bit different.
Well, my thought is that most professions have a statute of limitations or a statute of repose. So like after a certain number of years of either finding the defect, like becoming aware of it, or you doing the work, you're not liable. Well, the only reason that land surveyors don't have that in some states is we've done a horrible job going to our legislators and asking for it. Because it's just a fiction of statute, right? They could make a statute tomorrow that said all doctors are not liable for any work they do 24 hours after the surgery. I mean, just make anything up. So it's really a shame that there's not a statute of repose or limitations for surveyors in all states, because all you have to do is go to the legislature and then have the governor sign the bill and you've got it. So why not? Well, it's the same reason that surveyors do not have a right of trespass in many states. Like I love surveying in Florida because I can go where I want to, whenever I want to as a surveyor. Go to Texas, you go to jail for going on the neighbor's property, or Ohio or Nevada, somewhere else. And you can't do your work without going on people's property. So it makes me crazy. So Ken, I think that surveyors need to go to their legislator and tell them what they want. And I wish we were bigger, because the bigger you are, the reason why there's no trespass statute in South Carolina is because the Farmers Bureau has opposed it for like 30 years. And the farmers have 100 times more people than surveyors do. So it's not a matter of, who's right and who's wrong. It's just a matter of numbers who can go vote.
Just curious, what do you think would be a fair and equitable limit of liability as far as, that time period goes?
I don't even know. Maybe like 5 years, 10 years. I mean, it's difficult because a lot of survey problems are not found until there's another survey done or there's a dispute. But at the same time, maybe if there was a shorter statute, the homeowners or the property owners would realize they better get higher quality surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah, great points.
Another issue regarding that situation is, I do a survey in 1980, and there's not another survey done, or the air is not discovered until 2010. Now, what kind of evidence of the work that I did in 1980 is still remaining in 2010 to justify my survey?
Yeah. How do you defend yourself? Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And our statute in Nevada, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trent, I think it doesn't start to run until the error is found. So you've got like 5 years after the error is found. Well, if I laid out a casino in 1980 and the error is found last year, I'm flat ass screwed.
Yeah, the clock just starts
out of
ticking.
business and probably in jail.
That's interesting. Maybe have the statute equal, like in Florida, you got to have your records for 6 years. Keep all your records for 6 years. And if you give a client a signed and sealed map, you have to keep a copy of that signed and sealed map for 6 years. So if I have to keep all my records for 6 years, when I have a 6-year statute of limitations, make it equal.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yep. It's good stuff.
But that's, again, like I've said before, now you understand why most surveyors drink.
Well, I was watching a surveyor here in Fort Myers today, and it was all-day survey. And they were trying to survey like this whole line of boulders and vegetation with a total station. Now, what did I do? I spent like a couple hours, got a laser scanner, laser scanned everything, and I can measure the little vegetation that hangs over the boulder line. I can measure all the boulders. They were trying to use a total station, and they were inside this like dense line of vegetation. I was like, there's got to be a better way to make money. Like, there's got to be an easier way to make money in this world than traveling through this like, cage of boulders with vegetation filled over it. So, maybe the solution is, if you're smart enough, you should go find a different job.
Or retire.
Yeah, you should retire. Exactly.
Yeah. George is trying. Anybody else?
It's working.
There you go. Anybody got more specific questions? There's a few of you.
I got one more, Trent, if I may.
No, go for it. Yeah, keep it going.
So, Tony, I'd be curious to get your opinion on this. I got contacted about, 2 months ago. This is really strange, I think, to be a expert witness on a case that involved a surveyor that used to work for the company that I currently work for.
Okay.
And the survey in question was done while he was working for the company that I currently work for.
That's tough.
Oh no.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem right in my opinion.
That's a conflict of interest for sure.
Yeah, it is. I would agree with that one. That's the potential for that conflict of interest is like way higher than what the reward would be.
So and that's what I expressed that exact concern to the attorney, and the attorney said, I understand that, but my client wants to hire you to be our expert witness.
Yeah. So
I just think it's something that I personally should walk away from, to tell you the truth, and just decline.
You're gonna be fair, and you're gonna be fair and balanced no matter what, just from ethics alone. But still, so he's being asked as an expert witness to go against the prior surveyor, but the prior surveyor was based on the company he works for, Tony. So he works for XYZ, and they're asking him to defend the survey, or basically tear down another surveyor that worked for XYZ right now. So
and actually almost assassinate his own company.
Yeah, maybe this could work both ways. Because if you're working for the company and you're going to testify against your own company, like who would do that? Right. So if you came up with a really nasty report, like, well, it was so bad, this is my own company, I had to write this stuff about it. But, in all seriousness, unethical behavior is not doing something wrong. It could be just the appearance of doing something wrong. So even if you did something, even if you had 100% objective report, that could be used against you if you had some kind of relationship prior or current. And if you look at the attorney relationships, attorneys have a lot more latitude in conflicts of interest with past clients. But if there's a current client versus current client conflict or something, that's a big red flag. So I would say once you get into an expert witness gig, you're stuck. Like, it's hard to get out without losing face. So if you have any kind of reservations about it, why bother? Like, you can make money doing anything, so why even bother take on the issue? And don't trust an attorney to tell you what's ethical.
That's great.
Because they'll tell you, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And then if there's any kind of problem, they'll sail you down the river. They'll let you go in about 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the company, right? The company will go, well, we don't need that money, because it's at that point, you're just battling yourself. That's, yeah.
Yeah. And in this situation, I do agree with what the other surveyor did, but I still think it just, the eye test, I don't think it passes,
Yeah, like who's paying your salary right now? XYZ company.
Right.
Who are you defending? XYZ company.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
it's like I'm defending a hotel and casino, and my wife says, oh, I really want to go there when you go do your survey. And I said, that's great, but we're not staying there. Because if I took a $1,000 a night room at this casino hotel, and then I wrote a report defending their actions in an easement issue, what's it going to look like? Oh, Dr. Nettleman got $10,000 worth of gratuities in his week. He went on vacation, took his wife and kids, all this great, and now he shows up to write a report. Oh, how convenient is that?
Yep.
Now, $10,000 is way too little to buy me off, but still, it sounds bad. I mean, you took money you took money that was not part of your direct service, like took extra stuff, and then you a report to help these people. That doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. We continue ethics from last week into this week. Just
the only
by
time
role
you're
play.
wrong, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and why even bother going through the hassle of having a conflict, any kind of potential conflict? Just sell it down the river. I've learned that for 10 people to contact me for any kind of surveying work, 5 of them will drop off when I tell them how much it costs and what it's going to take, and the other 2 will drop off after I review their file and tell them they have a bad case or a bad issue or something else. So I expect to get 2 or 3 out of 10 potential clients, and that's fine. So, it's totally your choice, but I'd probably decline the work and just go do something else.
Yep. Good stuff. Anybody else?
Thanks, Charles.
Go for it. What was that, George?
Thanks, Charles. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Yep,
Yeah,
glad you enjoyed it. This was a quickie presentation I just put together
Yeah.
a few days ago, but hope you guys enjoyed it, got a little bit of thinking, and there are many more things you can do to make your business better and to limit your liabilities. Don't just stick to these, but definitely think about how you can protect yourself, because an ounce of prevention will definitely help you. Going through a lawsuit is hell. Like, it'll wreck your life. It's a mess. So if you can avoid it any way you can, just do little stuff to avoid it and have a happy life free of attorneys.
Right.
Well, I definitely agree with your training strategies. I think that's where we fall short a lot in this profession. We hire people that have experience, and it doesn't match our business practice. So, and we don't even worry about retraining them a lot of times, unfortunately. And like I said in the chat, I'd rather hire somebody that's unskilled and train them to do things the way I want them done than to untrain them for bad habits that I see that they do from other places. But we really do need to increase our training and mentorship a lot. And that's why this format I find it fascinating, and it's why I'm willing to spend my time here, even though I really have no other reason to do it other than mentorship.
That's great, George. I'm glad you're here. And I'll end with one more thing, because I was laughing about this today. I told the attorney to take a picture of the surveyors GPSing under a big giant tree. And I said, take a picture of that for later. And the attorney said, shouldn't you tell them not to do that? And I said, it's an issue of philosophy, not an issue of the one practice. So that they don't share my same philosophy about a lot of things. Like, I wouldn't have spent 10 hours with the total station. I would have spent 1 hour with the laser scanner. This is a philosophy question. So you have to train your people how to adopt your own philosophy. And if they don't share it, you have to, free them from their chains and send them on to better and bigger things.
Yeah.
So with that, thanks again for tuning in. Rami, it's good to see you. Sean, everybody, thanks for coming. Jerry, Kent, and Trent, thanks again for doing this. And we'll be back on
Yeah, I appreciate
next
it.
time.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Have a good night,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Take care.